listening to the Alchemical Tech Revolution, and I am your host, Wayne McCroy. Good evening, everyone. Tonight, we're going to discuss, first, do no harm. You know, folks, all the world is a stage, and we are all just actors upon that stage. And with that being said, I can't emphasize enough the importance of understanding mythology. Now, a lot of people might look at mythology and think, well, what's the importance here? What is it that you think I'm supposed to take away from mythology? And what does any of this have to do with the Hippocratic oath? That oath that says, first, do no harm. Well, folks, we're going to get into that tonight, and you're going to begin to understand a couple things about our medical system, its true nature, and what exactly it's designed for and what it's designed to do. And how we're going to understand that is by looking back at the Greek mythology, and it's actually the Romanized version of Greek mythology, and I can't emphasize this point enough. Mythology is a tool used by the power elite to control narratives. These mythological ideas hit on certain archetypes of the unconscious mind, and they are very well aware of that. So it's important that we understand mythology and where many of our modern day things that we get here come from, and how they are actually representations of some of these mythological ideas. Your unconscious mind will recognize these archetypes regardless of whether you know on the surface, in your conscious mind, what the meaning behind it is. So, this is one of the ways that they use Twilight language to control the behaviors of the masses and steer the public mindset. Without further ado, let's get into it here. Many people will look at the medical system and they'll recognize a symbol that's associated with the medical system. That would be the symbol known as the caduceus. It's the rod with wings with the two intertwined serpents going up it, correct? Well, that is the symbol being used by our modern day medical system. And guess what? It's not a correct symbol for the medical system. And it wasn't always this caduceus. That wasn't always the symbol used for the medical system. Originally, the medical system was represented in a symbol known as the rod of Asclepius. And we're going to take a look back at that, and we're going to compare and contrast these two ideas, Asclepius and caduceus. First of all, what is Asclepius, or who was Asclepius? So let's read here from the Encyclopedia Britannica. Asclepius, Greco-Roman god of medicine, son of Apollo, god of healing, truth, and prophecy, and the mortal princess Coronis. Gonna pause there, folks. Did you catch that? Asclepius was the son of Apollo and a mortal princess named Coronis. Nothing to see here. Let's move on a little, shall we? The centaur, Chiron, taught him the art of healing. At length, Zeus, the king of the gods, afraid that Asclepius might render all men immortal, slew him with a thunderbolt. Immortality, that is the quest of these people in positions of power today, and they're seeking that primarily through the hyper-physical viewpoint or the hyper-materialist viewpoint that is caught up in this transhumanist philosophy that's coming forward. Asclepius was the original healing archetype. Apollo slew the Cyclops, who had made the thunderbolt and was then forced by Zeus to serve Admetus. Homer, in the Iliad, mentions him only as a skillful physician and father of two Greek doctors at Troy, Machaon and Podalirius. In later times, however, he was honored as a hero and eventually worshipped as a god. And of course, they're talking about Asclepius here, folks, just to make it clear. The cult began in Thessaly, but spread to many parts of Greece, because it was supposed that Asclepius effected curses of the sick in dreams. The practice of sleeping in his temples in Epidaurus in South Greece became common. In 293 BC, his cult spread to Rome, where he was worshipped as Asclepius. Asclepius was frequently represented standing, dressed in a long cloak with bare breast. His usual attribute was a staff with a serpent coiled around it. This staff is the only true symbol of medicine. A similar but unrelated emblem, the caduceus, with its winged staff and intertwined serpents, is frequently used as a medical emblem but is without medical relevance since it represents the magic wand of Hermes, or Mercury, the messenger of the gods and the patron of trade. And I'm going to pause right there, folks. The patron of trade. The medical system in our country, folks, is a business. Hermes is the god of business. Okay? He's also known as the trickster god. And he's often represented by the number 8, which actually is kind of a take off of the idea of the two intertwined serpents. So the number 8, oftentimes when you see the number 8, this represents Mercury or Hermes, the trickster god, the god of commerce. When you see that medical symbol with the caduceus on it, that's representing commerce. That is not a true symbol of healing. And that is part and parcel of what much of the problem is with our medical system. So you could see the importance of mythology in this case. And we're actually going to go ahead and look at a paper here that's written in the Journal of Pharmacy and Bioallied Sciences, interestingly enough, called Things You Don't Learn in Medical School, Caduceus, by M. Prakash and J. Carlton Johnny. Abstract. It is a known fact that every symbol has a unique meaning. In that case, what does this unique symbol, caduceus, which is used in various forms and modifications by many medical organizations, mean? Is it just a custom, or does it have a deeper meaning? The story of this medical symbol started way back in 1400 BC, traveled through time, has undergone many changes, misconceptions, and has finally reached the present state. Here we have tried to give you a glimpse of how it has evolved over time, what it actually means, what have we interpreted, and what can we learn from it. There are certain things that will not be taught in medical schools, and it is usually learnt out of our own interests. The caduceus is one of them. Being in the medical profession for so many years, have we ever thought what that symbol that we wear on our coats, print on our prescription pads and textbooks stands for? So let us get reminded of some of the long-forgotten facts in medicine. The worthiness of the medical symbol has been debated for a long time. If you observe closely, there are 2 symbols that are used to represent medicine as seen in figure 1 down below here. And he shows a symbol of the caduceus and also the rod of Asclepius. It says one is the caduceus and the other is the rod of Asclepius. Caduceus is a symbol with a short staff entwined by 2 serpents, sometimes surmounted by wings, while the rod of Asclepius is the one with a single snake. The similarity between both these symbols is the snake. And it says here, why a snake? Have you ever wondered why is a snake, which is a symbol of destruction, used ironically as a symbol of healing? Well, the answer lies deep sown in history when Moses, around 1400 BC, used the bronze serpent erected on the pole to cure the people who were bitten by snakes. The other reasons why serpent has been used is the shedding of the skin that indicated longevity and immortality. The snake's ability to change from a lethargic state to one of rapid activity symbolized the power to convalesce from an illness. Charras and Martin, 1673, subjected the viper to innumerable experimental investigations and concluded they were valuable remedies for itch, erysipelas, measles, smallpox, leprosy, and were a valuable adjunct to the production of a beautiful skin. Hence, the snake has been a powerful symbol of healing itself. The snake mentioned in the symbol is an Asclepian snake, which belongs to the family Colubridae. Its zoological name, Elaphe longissima. Smooth, glossy, and slender, the snake has a uniformly brown back with a streak of darker color behind the eyes. The snake's belly is yellowish or whitish and has ridged scales that catch easily on rough surfaces, like that of a pole or staff. Which of these? The confusion starts with the use of caduceus and rod of Asclepius. The caduceus is a symbol of Hermes or Mercury in Greek and Roman mythology. Caduceus symbol is identified with thieves, merchants, and messengers, and Mercury is said to be a patron of thieves and outlaws, not a desirable protector of physicians. The symbol originated when Mercury once attempted to stop a fight between two snakes by throwing his rod at them, whereupon they twined themselves around the rod, and the symbol was born. The rod of Asclepius belongs to Asclepius, who was the revered Greek god of healing. When did we get it wrong? The modern use of Staff of Asclepius started when the American Medical Association had the Staff of Asclepius as its symbol in 1910. The Royal Army Medical Corps, French military service, and other medical organizations had done the same. Even today, the World Health Organization, Medical Council of India symbols have the Staff of Asclepius in them. U.S. Army Medical Corps, the Public Health Service, and the U.S. Marine Hospital, however, use the caduceus largely as a result of the adoption of the caduceus as its insignia by the U.S. Army Medical Corps in 1902. Thus, it symbolizes administrative emblem implying neutral and non-combatant status. How many of us really know the truth? In 1990, a survey was done in the U.S. and it was found that 62% of the professional associations used the rod of Asclepius, while 37% used the caduceus, and 76% of commercial organizations used the caduceus. Can it be related to a disease? Does any disease that can be treated by a stick come to your mind? Yes, it is none other than Dracunculus medinensis, the guinea worm. This is potentially a disease that can be treated with the stick. That was also one of the reasons why the medical symbol originated. Conclusion. The use of the symbol is very ironical, as how can destructive creatures use to represent a healing purpose? The answer lies in the snake's characters of skin shedding representing immortal life, sudden change in activity emphasizing transit from sickness to cure, early use in the Bible, and most important of all, it was used by Asclepius, who is the god of healing. And that's the end of that article, folks. And there are some other connections made with this within the secret schools as well, the secret societies. And this relates to the occult study of the human anatomy. So there's also this idea that there are two energy currents that run up and down the spine, and they entwine around the spine in much the same way the caduceus looks. So this symbol of the caduceus is said in the occult lore to represent these two intertwining energies that run up and down the human spine, around the spine. And that's why the caduceus is used as well. And this symbol of Hermes, or Mercury, this caduceus, with the wings at the top, the wings representing elevation of the mind, elevating the mind. And Hermes is also known as Prometheus in some mythological circles. So this is the idea put forward by the secret societies in the ancient mystery schools, is that these energy currents run up and down the human spine, and through different initiatory rites and through study, you can become illuminated or illumined, and you could open up your third eye. It'll open up your spiritual senses and open up your sight so that you can soar into higher realms. So that's the idea of the wings at the top of the caduceus there as well. But it's also represent the god of commerce or the god of trade. And as we read in that academic journal there, Hermes was also a god that was a trickster god, and also the god of thieves. And how important are symbols to the human mind and to the things which they are representing? Well, I would say they're extremely important. And they do have a real effect on your psyche, whether you want to admit that or not. What's been done here with our medical system is it's gone from a healing system where doctors take this Hippocratic oath, and that relates back to Hippocrates, the ancient Greek metaphysician and physician, whose first major rule that he laid down is first, do no harm. I think that's something that's kind of been put on the back burner today, in today's world, in our modern medical system. We see, statistically, if we look, the number 3 cause of death here in America is standard medical treatment. So this is a far cry from primum non nocere, which means first do no harm. There's a lot of harm being done with our medical system. And most of the people that are working day-to-day within the medical system, they really have no ill will towards men at all or towards anybody else. And they really, honestly and sincerely think they're helping people. And in many cases, they are. I don't want to bash our medical system completely. As far as emergency care and things of that nature, surgeries and stuff like that, it's extremely effective. But they've also disregarded many other types of medicine. This is all what they call allopathic medicine. So they've thrown aside things like homeopathic medicine and naturopathic medicine and all these different sub-disciplines that up until the past, century and a half or so, existed and were accepted by people, and many people understood a lot of the common practices. It's mostly here in Western society that we see this. It's primarily the allopathic medicine, the idea of the allopathic medicine that gets pushed. And this was done primarily through the Rockefeller Foundation. That's where they put the funding for the American Medical Association and many of these other medical schools and things like that. So when you control the funding, you control the narratives and stuff being put forward. You control the information that's being put out there. You're controlling the education of the future doctors. And that's what has happened here. We've lost sight of many of the other naturopathic forms of medicine and things of that nature that have been shown through the ages to work and be effective in many things. So we've lost sight in the Western world of many important aspects of medicine. It's all about vaccine, and we're inundated with it, and it's all propaganda, folks. And they're trying to push this into something not related to health or medicine or healing. And that's where we're at right now. So this very much would explain why the switchover, a little over 100 years ago, they changed from the Asclepius symbol to the caduceus symbol here in America, in the Western world, from a system of healing to a commerce system. Do you see where this is going, folks? The whole idea, the practice of healing, they tried to turn it into a commercial operation and switch it over into something that they could use as a means of making money and controlling people. We're at this crossroads where they're trying to completely turn this whole thing over into a technocracy, a medical technocracy, where you are tracked by a digital ID. They know everything about you. They have all your biometric data. They have all of your metadata. It's all combined together. And what's going to happen here, folks, and this has been actually shown in several different patents and patent applications and ideas like this, they're going to tie your bank account to this, to your biometrics, tie everything together. It's going to be a digital currency system, and it's going to have all your health information. Everything will be attached to you. Okay, this will be all your biometric information, your bank account, and everything will be attached to you, along with a social credit score, which has already been rolled out in China and heavily tested. That's coming here next, and this is the direct way that they intend to introduce it here, because nobody in their friggin' right mind would accept this at face value. But that's why they're pushing health passports, okay? You want to travel, you want to get on an airplane, you want to go out of the country, you have to have this. That's what they're working towards. And I think we need to stand up and tell them no. Whatever your beliefs are about this whole pandemic situation or this vaccine situation, here's the facts, okay? There are a record number of reports of deaths within the VAERS system related to these vaccines. And the CDC and the FDA and all the other regulatory agencies in the U.S. are blatantly ignoring this data. When in 1976, when the swine flu epidemic was taking place and they rushed to market a vaccine for that, 25 people had died within that initial rollout phase, and they pulled it from the market. Well, here we're talking thousands upon thousands upon thousands of deaths are related to this vaccine, and they just blatantly turn their head and they say, no, that's not true. They do not follow up and study those deaths that are reported to the VAERS system. They ignore those numbers. Okay, so there's no way they could know one way or the other if the vaccine was related to the death or not, because they do no follow-up on that. None. Zero. Zip. Zilch. Nada. Negatory. Nothing. They do not follow up on that data. They claim that they track that data and they monitor that data, and that these vaccines go through intensive safety studies, and it's all a bunch of lies and nonsense and manipulation. Even if you believe that vaccines are a good thing, let's just play pretend for a minute, folks, and say, okay, there's this real pandemic out there, and people are dropping dead because of it, and the only way to stop it is with a vaccine. Well, let's be intellectually honest here, shall we? If you believe that this vaccine is the only thing that's going to stop this, first of all, we have a natural immune system that works much better than these stupid synthetic vaccines. And second of all, once again, let's be intellectually honest and look at the data that is actually being reported to the VAERS system. This is allegedly the system that collects all the data that relates to these vaccines and the types of adverse events and stuff that have happened. If they would be intellectually honest about it, they would admit that this vaccine has been a colossal failure. But they won't do that, folks, because this vaccine has a different outcome in mind than the restoration of people's health and well-being and a return to normalcy. That's the bottom line. That's the stone-cold truth. That's not what their intention is with this. They don't give two craps whether you heal or you're sick or you're well or what. They couldn't care less. They have no interest in your health. What they do have interest in is tracking your data, because you see, data is king, and he who controls the data controls the world. And the most valuable data right now is biometric data. So they want to know your genomic information, your biometric information. They want to know your heart rate. They want to know, did you take your medicine today? They want to know everything there is to know about your biology. And they intend to do that through the rollout of this vaccine and all the associated technologies that they already have patented and well underway to go with it. This all relates to tying you to a control grid, an electronic control grid. It's called the Internet of Things. That's why through this entire pandemic, they've been rolling out this 5G network, still putting up this 5G infrastructure. There's a reason for that. This is not what you would necessarily think of as an essential business per se, but apparently rolling out the 5G networks were essential through this whole thing. It's all about data, okay? They want your data. They're going to use it to control you. See, that's what it is. The more points of data they have on you, the better control they have over you. And it's going to roll into this social credit system. We see that already well underway with different social media platforms. They have a social credit score on you, folks. Don't doubt it for an instant. They have. It's already here. Okay? This is already here in America. It's just not been rolled out to the public yet. It's not there for the public to know about just yet. But they have social credit scores for everyone, much like the system in China. So I would urge you, look into this. It's a very real thing. It's going to get to the point where one day you go on Facebook and you post something bad about the government, and guess what? You get locked out of your bank account for like 24 hours or something. Or, you're not able to buy a concert ticket to a certain concert because, a red flag comes up that you lost X number of points from your social credit score. Think it sounds ridiculous? Stick around a couple years. I'm telling you, it's coming here to the West. It's already been rolled out in China, and it's being ported over through Australia, and then it's coming here to the West. If you think it sounds a little extreme or a stretch too far, stick around a couple years. Who would have thought that the entire world would lock down for a disease with a 99.7% survival rate? Think about it. and that all of this would come from that. It would completely change the way the world operates, and that's exactly what's going on. We're in the Great Reset, folks. That's what it's about. The Great Reset. It doesn't have diddly squat to do with your health. Never did. Never will. It's all about control, and it's all about switching the reins of power to something else. It's the next step. The next step in human evolution. So we're all going to be tied to this massive computer technocratic network. They will monitor your health conditions and at some point even your thought 24/7. And I know that might sound a stretch too far for a lot of people, but it's actually something that's been talked about in various think tank white papers and things of that nature, and it's called the Internet of Thoughts. I'm kidding you not. I'm not kidding. The Internet of Thoughts. It'll be a subsystem of the Internet of Things, and they've also discussed openly the Internet of Bodies. Okay? We're all going to be tied into that. It'll all be this wonderful collective, won't it? And you'll do things for the greater good, just like they're trying to convince you now. I really think that in a meeting room somewhere, they're sitting around laughing at us. Laughing. That people are this gullible and stupid and willing to give up their rights because somebody told them to fear this invisible thing that may kill their grandmother if they don't but listen to what the government tells them. That's another topic for another day. Just the incredible harm that I believe is going to come from these shots, especially ones that use this messenger RNA platform. At any rate, that like I said, that's a topic for another day. But that goes right along with what we're discussing tonight, because it should be, first, do no harm. But how many physicians and people that are medical professionals are actually doing harm without realizing it? In the beginning, they were calling this stuff mandates or government mandates, things of that nature. Well, here's the little kick in the pants here now, folks. It's not government mandates anymore. Now it's private corporations and private companies and these things taking these suggestions from agencies like the CDC and implementing them themselves. So see, it's no longer a mandate, so they get around that. See, they rolled it out in the beginning as a mandate. Make this mandatory so people get used to the idea of maybe having these ridiculous requirements placed upon them. So all these businesses, well, they don't want to have somebody come into their establishment and sue them because they got sick with this. Okay, so they go ahead and they will willingly and willfully themselves listen to these recommendations. The whole mask idea, it's covering your breath. Your breath is your spirit, folks. Always has been representative of your spirit. So that's what it is. They're trying to block out subconsciously and unconsciously through this archetype spiritual ideas from entering your mind. So that plays a lot with it too. And this ties you further into the hyper-materialist viewpoint that they have and into the hyper-materialist control system. So the whole mask idea just goes along with this. And once again, first, do no harm. Well, masks can and often do harm, especially to young people, to children. It has psychological ramifications. It's doing harm. It violates the Hippocratic Oath. The masking is doing harm. The whole vaccine push with this thing, also doing harm. So these things are both in direct violation of the Hippocratic Oath. And most of the physicians, they won't admit that. Most of the medical professionals, they won't admit that, and they don't even realize that, and they don't see it that way. So that becomes a real problem, doesn't it? So when this system that swore an oath to not harm people and to try to help people, well, they are actively harming people, and they don't realize it. And that's the whole thing. Like I said, by and large, most people, especially working in the medical system, they really firmly believe that they are doing something good. They are helping people, and that's what they try to do, and that's what they want to do. And some of them have realized what's going on and have stepped out and spoken out against this. But you will still have those that will just follow their orders because they need their paycheck, don't they? They need their livelihood. So they'll just keep going along to get along. And that's so much of our society, all aspects of our society. People just go along to get along, and they settle for doing something like this, sometimes doing harm, without necessarily intending to or realizing it, because they're order followers. And that's a major problem in our society. Too many order followers, and they follow the orders of strangers on the television. Isn't that a kick in the pants, too? They follow orders from a stranger on the television because he wears a fancy suit and he's got the title doctor. He might have on a white lab coat, but he might be the biggest scumbag in the world. Fauci. But I digress. But anyway, like I said, this is a problem because we have a society full of order followers. People who don't know how to think for themselves anymore. And a lot of this is because, you see, these people in positions of power have leveraged forces and energies against the masses that they don't even realize are there. And that's why I can't stress enough the importance of mythology and symbolism, philosophy. See, these things are key. They always use 4 foundational tools. They use philosophy, they use religion, they use science, and they use mythology. That's the 4th corner that so many people miss the boat on. So it's important that we understand these things and understand how they leverage these ideas and these archetypes against us, because in so doing, they have a type of control over your mind that you don't even consciously know is there. They do this through the use of archetypes, and Carl Jung talked about the idea of archetypes, and there's several archetypes that he identified, but there are more archetypes than what he identified. And Jung was an occultist, so he understood many of these ideas from the ancient mystery schools that were brought forward here by the secret societies now. These kind of things that are taught at the highest, most levels of these secret societies. These ways to manipulate people's minds and attitudes and public behavior. They've brought forward many of these ideas and weaponized them against the public at large. And our medical system's no different. It's been converted over now to a system of commerce. And it's going to be completely turned over to a system of commerce for the sake of control. And it'll be done through the use of cybernetics methodologies, which we see going on right now. And cybernetics, folks, for those who don't know what cybernetics is, I know a lot of people will hear the word and think of robotics and artificial intelligence and things like that. That's all part of it. But the definition of cybernetics is the science of systems control, controlling whole systems. See, that's what cybernetics is. Cybernetics is derived from a Greek word, kybernetes, which means steersman or pilot. It's about control. That's what it's about, and they will use many of these advanced technologies, artificial intelligence, and all these different things for the sake of control. It's about control of the animal and the machine. Okay, and that's from Norbert Wiener, the guy that coined the term cybernetics. And cybernetics is a total inversion of the ancient natural sciences that we would call alchemy. And this is being done on purpose, and it's a manipulation. And people in the positions of power in this world have an understanding of many of these ideas and use these archetypal energies against the masses. Okay, and they've turned it into an actual science in the modern age that they call cybernetics. It's all about controlling whole systems. So they don't look at things the way that we're taught in our education system today, whereas we're taught to break down ideas into little separate subcategorizations, okay? It's all about compartmentalization. They don't look at things in a compartmentalized way. They look at the entire system and figure out the best practices for controlling that system, and that works across the board for anything. Works for biology, works for economies, works for machines, it works for everything, okay? This whole cybernetics methodology. So that's what they're doing here. They're playing the long game, and they're looking at society as a whole, and they know that they could have absolute control over a certain percentage of us, a large percentage, without people questioning it. But they also know they're going to get pushback from another section of society. So they try to use workarounds to get around that. That being the case, they've really used many of these methodologies to implement the things that they want. Now, to further be able to do that, this is what they want to do. They want to combine all your biometric, genomic, and other information, okay, all your data, your metadata, everything, into a utility. And this will likely be a blockchain type utility. All right, so that no information ever gets lost in transit. With that being the case, they want to tie everybody's records, their biometric signature and everything, right along with it, all be tied together in the same data stream, in the same database. And it'll track everything you ever do from cradle to grave. You'll be attached directly to your funds, your bank account, your social credit score, everything. It'll know everything you do. It'll track your blood pressure, your pulse rate, your very thoughts, folks. That's what they want to do with all of this. They want to be able to have absolute and total control over you from cradle to grave, day in and day out. And they're using these technologies to do that. And this whole vaccine idea and the vaccine passport idea that's going along with it is key to this. All right. They started with the advent of personal computers, and then they rolled it out into portable personal computers, or as we call them, cell phones. And they purposely made that technology addictive. So you have your smartphone with you, and most of the cyberneticists and transhumanists of today would tell you that we are already technically cyborgs, because this is an extension of ourselves, this cell phone. See, because we have our online personalities on there, on the social media, and we interact in different ways with it. We use it to connect to the internet so we could find out information really fast. We use it to communicate with each other across the world in an instant. So they would argue we're already part cyborg. It's just a matter of internalizing it more and working on the connection speed, the data speed, the input-output speed. That's what they talk about. This is the next step for them. They want to make us in some way or another internalize this technology to one degree or another and be tied to the grid 24/7 so that they have more control. And they will present it as being a good thing, and it'll have many uses, and it will have many practical applications. But don't be fooled. Those benefits and good applications are not for you and I, folks, because you see, these people, they have no place in their new age or their new world order for whom they call the profane. And that's you and I. We're the ones that are not part of their little secret society group or their mystery school that they brought forward through the ages. If you're not an initiate, you're not a member of their group, you're not one of them, and they don't even consider you fully human. With that being the case, they have no place in their new age for the profane. So this whole thing is a dual-use operation. It's to weed out the wheat from the chaff, in their view. And it's not only to advance them to the status of quote-unquote God, because that's what they want to do, is become a god through this transhumanist singularity, but it's also an operation to cull the population. That's what's going on here today, and that is in diametric opposition to first, do no harm. So that's why I wanted to talk about this stuff tonight, because you could see how they leverage off of some of these older ideas, the old Greek philosophies, the whole premise that the modern medical system's allegedly built on, the first do no harm, the ideas of Hippocrates, how they've taken the symbols associated with healing and with medicine, and they've twisted them and perverted them and inverted them into something they were never intended to be. And it's all about turning this whole thing into a massive commerce operation, which is an unnatural operation. So we're going from operating in a place of the natural world to operating in an unnatural digital type world. And they're using the medical system to usher this in, going from the rod of Asclepius to the caduceus. They've used the idea, the trickster. They've tricked us, haven't they? They've tricked us into believing they were here to help. when in fact they're here to gain control and manipulate. And once again, you could see how many of these ideas tie together. And I would recommend learn the Greek and learn the Romanized version of the Greek mythologies, because Rome pretty much took everything Greece had and kind of twisted it and turned it into their own mythology of sorts. They just put new names on it. They slapped new lipstick on a pig and called it their own. So that's kind of what they've done. And they use these archetypes in innumerable ways that once you start to study mythology and you look at the news stories and stuff going on in the world around you, you'll be amazed. You'll be amazed at the things that you're able to pick out that are directly tied to some of these mythological ideas. And a lot of times it's a communication between those people, that, quote unquote, in the know, okay, as to what to expect next, or this is our fingerprints on things. And as I opened up the show with, folks, all the world is a stage, and we're but actors. And they use stuff like this all the time to signal one another. Look what we just did. This is us. We're doing this. And just to kind of clarify a little more what I'm talking about, do you remember the rollout of the vaccine? Do you remember the first gentleman who received this vaccine? Well, his name was William Shakespeare. It never ends, folks. William Shakespeare, whom the secret societies claim was not anybody who actually existed, but it was a nom de plume of Sir Francis Bacon. They claim Sir Francis Bacon wrote all of Shakespeare, and that William Shakespeare was a nom de plume, a pen name of Sir Francis Bacon. So they roll this thing out, and well, wouldn't you know, the first person in the entire world to get one of these experimental shots is named William Shakespeare. Well, go figure, folks. You know, that's not a cue or anything for people within the know to pick up on it. Incidentally, the poor guy died a couple weeks later. But they claim it was a stroke not related to the shot. Seeing some of the data coming across now about people having all kinds of heart problems and everything else, it probably was related to the shot, folks. Let's be honest about it. But at any rate, even, you know, if that guy was a real person or not, who knows? But you could see that the trick they play on the world, the Mercury, the trickster, the Hermes, the trickster archetype, played upon the world through the medical system. Yeah, we rolled out this brand new vaccine technology, and the first guy to get it was named William Shakespeare. Really? And this is how they operate, folks. They put their fingerprints all over this stuff. Oh, look what we did. Those idiots, they'll eat this up lock, stock, and barrel. They'll buy right into it. That's what they do. They sit and they laugh at us. I'm telling you. They laugh at the stupidity of the public. What will they buy today? Now, I'm sure they've had fun through this entire thing, just by telling you contradictory information every single day in and day out. So, with that being the case, I mean, I don't think there's anything much more to say tonight, except for we need to make those people that work in the medical field aware that they are violating their oath, first, do no harm. Most of them don't realize that's the case, and most of them won't want to admit that's the case, because to do so would be a very difficult karmic thing for them to face up to. So, that being the case, I mean, I would urge anybody out there works in the medical field, take a look around at what's going on, and realize that this may not be exactly what you signed up for. And not only that, let's be intellectually honest here. Even if you buy into the quote-unquote science wholeheartedly, you would have to admit, if you were being intellectually honest with yourself, that this vaccine has been a colossal failure, and that the idea of a vaccine passport is meaningless because of that. So, why are they still pushing? I think those of you that work in the medical field that are out there, you need to start asking some of these questions. and reviewing a lot of the data that's out there. And not just the data that's hand-fed to you by the CDC, because they're not being intellectually honest either. They've handled this whole thing wrong from the get-go, and they've done so on purpose because they have a different agenda in mind. So, with that being the case, I would challenge us, question the medical authority. Let's see if we can get some real, true answers and investigation into these things. Because here's the problem. They have all the data they could ever want to look at within the VAERS system relating to this vaccine and its side effects, but they won't follow up and look at it, because here's the problem. If they do, they will find by and large that there are many of these deaths that have been reported to the VAERS system that are directly related to the vaccine, and if they do so, then they are obligated to pull this vaccine off the market, and their whole house of cards falls, folks. So that's why they won't be intellectually honest about it and do this. So that's up to those of us in the grassroots areas of America here to start questioning, especially those of us that work within the medical field who don't necessarily buy into the narrative here. Start questioning things. Make your own observations. Put together your own data. Some doctors have started doing this and presenting this data. You see, the whole thing's not going to stand, folks. It's not going to stand. So, with that being said, we could have a better idea of the intention that's going on in the world now by looking at these mythological symbols, as I opened with, and understanding where the myth comes from, where the ideas come from. And having done that, we could have a better view of what it is we're looking at, folks, and it's not what it was presented to be. It has nothing to do with health and everything to do with absolute control of your data and, in turn, you. So that's what it's all about. So we're going to go ahead and conclude here tonight. That's it for first Do No Harm, because you could see harm's being done, and most of the people involved in doing the harm don't know that they're involved in doing harm. And I think very many of them would be horrified to find out what's truly going on behind the scenes. So we need to keep drawing people's attention to it, especially those that work within the medical field, to try and check into these things and follow up and do their own research and gather their own data, based upon their personal experience as well, not just what they are told by those people in positions of authority that refuse to actually investigate the data that they already have. That's the problem. I think we need to make a demand that they investigate the data that they already have within the VAERS system. And that might be our method for moving forward here, and maybe reflecting a lot of this first do no harm idea back to where it belongs. So anyway, folks, thanks for listening tonight, and I'll catch you next time. Have a good night.